Here's a novel way to get your body to start building muscle and strength again. Start training unilaterally. Literally, if you've been working out for a long time, find yourself plateaued, do a long phase of one arm or one leg style training, unilateral training. The body naturally balances itself out when you train this way and you build muscle. Then you go back to the barbell and you're much stronger. Try it out for the next 4 to 6 weeks. Watch what happens.
This whole time, Doug thought that meant you lift weights on a unicycle.
No.
That's not what it is, Doug.
That's dangerous.
Yeah.
Don't do that.
Glad you clarified.
You know, what's crazy about this. So here's, you know what I love about what we do is there's so many things that we observe through training clients and ourselves over years and years and years, decades, in our case, that we make statements and then eventually the science catches up and proves what we're saying. Right. So what am I referring to? You know, we have a program called MAP Symmetry, which is essentially a unilateral style training program, meaning you're doing one arm, one leg at a time and training. It's a strength training program. And we were getting back, we get a lot of these, by the way. We never post them because we've made an agreement a long time ago to not use people's before and afters. We just don't believe in marketing fitness in that way. It tends to promote the wrong thing. But nonetheless, we get them. We get a lot of them. And we kept getting these body scans from people, who were getting lean body mass scans, body fat tests, DEXA scans. And they're showing us their DEXA before and after training unilaterally. And what you're finding, these are all seasoned individuals. These are all people who are experienced that I'm referring to. They'll send it back, and the first one will show something that is quite common, where it'll show lean body mass on the right side, lean body mass on the left side. So the right side will have a little bit more muscle than the left side or vice versa. They're then showing the after, and they're building and they're balancing out, essentially gaining way more muscle than they normally would in that period of time. But it's through the unilateral training, the balancing out. Like I remember this one young lady in particular, she gained like 3 pounds of lean body mass, but she was already fit. She looked amazing already. So it's really hard for anybody who's been worked out for a long time. You know this. The longer you work out, the harder it is to gain muscle. Your first year, you build a lot of muscle. By year 5, 6, and beyond, like gaining 3 pounds of real lean body mass, not just weight on the scale, but actually, that's really hard to do. And she gained, plus she's a female, she gained 3 pounds of lean body mass, and it was muscle that balanced out the right and left side. And we keep seeing DEXA scan like this. Yeah. And it confirms what we've always observed. Like if you're training people who have already got good muscular builds and they never train this way, you put them on a unilateral phase of training, and it's remarkable how the body responds.
It's not always obvious where your body's compensating. A lot of these times, and we're such creatures of habit, and we get into these patterns of lifting and what we feel is good. Like when we go to the gym, we have this sort of regular routine that we do. Now, if I'm lifting the weights, a lot of times I could be sort of just compensating on one side versus the other based off of like some imbalances, some lack of strength. And now if I'm going to take the time to actually really hyper focus on that and observe, okay, wow, my left leg actually is substantially less stable and weaker than my right leg. That's so much potential there for you to build upon. And so it's not just a novel stimulus, because we say that a lot in terms of like, well, why don't you just change the program up? Why don't you just find something that's like new and novel, because your body's going to, react to that stimulus. This is one of those things that's like, it's even more beneficial than that, because now we're addressing imbalances and instability that could be causing, this downstream effect of pain and dysfunction, down the road if you just keep going along what you're doing. So it's like, it's so beneficial for you just to do that regardless, to interrupt any kind of real serious barbell training.
Quick business question for you guys. If you were to have started this all over again, is there a different order of program releases, knowing what you know now, that you would have done? Like
from a business perspective or trainer perspective?
I'd be like prime symmetry.
I'll take both answers. Like I'll take. If they're different, tell me tell me the difference and why.
That's tough, because business wise, like top selling programs like Muscle Mommy and MAPS 15, and from a trainer perspective, you'd want to start with correctional and functional and stuff like that. The market doesn't really reflect what people need, so it's really hard. Luckily, we can communicate here on the podcast what's really beneficial. But MAPS Anabolic made sense because it's like general muscle building. But man, unilateral training is magic.
We kind of did something in the middle of that right? Because I don't think it was the smartest marketing business money decision to go anabolic first.
Right.
I also don't even think it was the best trainer program to go with. If we would have done that, we would have done Prime, right? If we were doing the absolute perfect trainer order on, that's the must. Every client has to, we've said this ad nauseum.
That's how you train people.
That's how you tell if you even have a good trainer. Like if your trainer doesn't run you through an extensive assessment on day one, run.
Right.
It's not a good trainer, right? So that should obviously have been the first one from that perspective. Then arguably, probably symmetry. Then you probably would address some of those imbalances before you move them into probably an anabolic. So I think if you were to order them, you probably would have bought, or we would have, if we were doing it from a trainer like that point, it probably would have looked, we waited a long time.
That's basically the order I arranged for, programming with student athletes. I mean, that was like, crucial for me to assess and see form dysfunction, and like see any kind of imbalance that need to be addressed. And then, implement that through unilateral training and then build them up to bilateral training at the end. It was like the perfect kind of progression.
But there's something weird going on too, because there's, like I said, we're looking at these DEXA scans. And also, again, we've observed this, just couldn't really explain it. But you build more muscle. So if you're experienced and you've been working out and then you train unilateral, something magical kind of happens. I say magical because I don't understand it. You build more overall muscle than you would have doing anything else, but that muscle is going to balancing the body out. You're still training the whole body though. So what's going on? There's something interesting going on where, I always think about those studies where they'll take somebody and they'll put one arm in a cast and then they'll strengthen the other arm while the arm's in a cast. The arm that's in a cast will lose less muscle, even though you're not training.
I don't think it's.
So I think there's this weird crosstalk.
I don't think it's that magical at all. I think there's a simple way to explain this. It's this the example you're using. This advanced lifter who doesn't even realize they have this discrepancy until the DEXA scan comes out and they find out they have this discrepancy left or right. So just for hypothetical reasons, we'll use some vague numbers like this. When they squat, 80% of the load is being taken over by the left side. 40%, or excuse me, that would be 20% is on the right side. And then you go put them on unilateral training. They don't really build much more on the left side because they were already maxing, pushing that out, and the body had adapted to handle 80% of the squat bilaterally. But what ends up happening is the one that was underperforming because of the overcompensation to the left side of that bilateral squat now is forced to take all of the load because it's unilateral. And so you have this huge opportunity for growth because it hasn't been being pushed at its max capacity.
I thought of that, but here's the thing: when you tell people to train unilaterally, there's a specific way to do it. It's not just train one arm and then train the other arm, train one leg, train the other. You start with the weaker side, and the weaker side dictates the weight and the reps. So then the stronger side is not training with the same intensity that normally.
Yeah, does. But again, I'll explain that. We've addressed this before. Probably one of the most mind-blowing, shattering things that I feel like I've learned in the last just 10 years of podcasting with you guys is the amount of volume intensity needed to keep muscle. Mm-hmm. So you go through this phase of 3 months of going through a unilateral program. The left side that was so dominant is still getting stimulated. Sure, it's way less intensity because you're having to match the weaker side, but it's enough to keep the muscle. It's enough to stimulate it enough because it doesn't need that much volume. It's not like you're going from not training it at all. You're still training some of it, and that's plenty to actually keep the muscle you've had. And then what it is it puts the emphasis on the side that's been neglected, and then it catches up.
I know. So
doesn't that make logical sense?
Kind of, right? But let's say you're doing a shoulder press, right? By the way, the numbers that Adam's giving are not common, right? If it was 80-20, you'd know. Barbell,
I probably should have used something more like 60-40.
Or not even. It's like a 2 or 3% difference in people who are advanced. Typically, it's not this, because otherwise you will see the barbell move. But, let's say we've worked with people, or it's happened to us, where you're doing a press, and when you start to fail, the bar starts to turn a little bit, and then you still get the bar up. Yeah. So you're still maximally stressing each side because the stronger side's lifting more, the weaker side's lifting up, but they're both maximally being stressed. There's something else that's going on. There's this interesting crosstalk, because I feel like the body, there's something adaptive there what's trying to maintain balance. And it's going to be based off of its stress and how it works. But how weird is that you train one side and you leave the other side incapacitated and it affects the other side? It's very interesting. There's this systemic signal that's being sent, and then maybe this crosstalk signal
is distributed throughout,
left to right, because like, you know, typically you don't just use one leg, you use both legs, or arms, use them both. So I don't know if there's a crosstalk between arms and legs. I would assume there's some, but it is interesting because if you're advanced and you switch to this style of training for a while, you'll build more muscle than had you not, even with this almost similar programming, just because it's
because now also you're addressing the inefficiency.
Yeah.
Because when you're lifting and you're overcompensating with, you know, the one side versus the other, you're going to get to a point where you're overtraining on that one side. So to regress it in a sense, and then to build the other one up and restore more efficiency in terms of like overall output, simultaneous output, versus just like, you know, one-sided output. I think that definitely plays in and contributes to you now stretching to an even higher optimal.
Yeah, that's a no-brainer
level.
to me. I mean, that's one of the coolest parts about running a purely unilateral program for a period of time and then going back is the strength gains when you go back to bilateral.
Oh, it's crazy.
Because now it's like
it's obvious.
Such a great way to break a plateau. Again, speaking to the advanced lifter who has been kind of stuck in a you know, strength plateau for a long time. And I remember this. And it was interesting because it was around the same time I was doing like a mobility kick. And so my intent was not, oh, I'm going to do this to build up my strength and break through a plateau. It was actually, I'm going on this mobility kick. So I was doing all this single leg stuff and I was doing single leg deadlifts, and I was really weak when I first started. And I ended up getting really strong on both sides and had avoided bilateral training for like 6 months, come back to deadlifting. And I had never felt so strong and so stable as I did after that. Yeah, it is wild. And again, that wasn't even the desired outcome. I wasn't even thinking, oh, I'm trying to do this to build strength. So the benefits for the advanced person who hasn't run through a pure, because the thing that I did in the past as a trainer that I didn't do,
you throw in unilateral,
you throw it in, you sprinkle it in, and
but you don't make it a focus,
and more like a novelty stimulus. It's been a while since I've done Bulgarians. Need to interrupt my squats with some Bulgarians, do them for a couple workouts, and then back to my squats or something like that. Never have I said, for 3 months, I'm going to commit to unilateral training.
People just don't do that. You don't see that.
No, you don't. You don't see a lot of people program that way. And it's crazy because I look back and I remember when we decided we were going to go that route, we're like, God, we get so many damn questions from people, and we're constantly telling them, go run unilateral for a while. You need to do this for you. It's like, why have we wrote a program to address these people? That should have been done a long time ago, I think, and that would have probably served us better, both business and trainer wise. I think would have served us.
And there's you know, more that goes into it. Like you know, you could consider a dumbbell chest press unilateral, but both at the same time is very different than alternating, and it's very different than one at a time.
Sure. Yeah.
So there's levels to how unilateral works. But you could try this in your workout. Like if you're going to work out today, take all of your bilateral exercises and do the unilateral version of that exercise. Almost every exercise has a unilateral style version. And then just do the whole workout that way. Your workout might take a little longer. You can cut the volume a little bit, but then see how you feel. It's really interesting. It's really strange too when you can squat so much or press so much or row so much, then you go unilateral and it's significantly less. I mean, you would expect it to be less than half at least, but not that much less. But when you never do this, it's like, oh wow, I could bench press 300 pounds, but I could barely handle 75-pound dumbbells. Okay, I need to work on.
It was such a funny thing though, because it was total performance and aesthetic gains from this style of training. Because it was like, how do we market this? You know, because usually it's like, you know, if you have some kind of aesthetic hook, you know, then that's going to kind of get people's attention a bit more. And it has that. It's a little more, I guess, boring in a sense in terms of the training style of it, but to fill a lot of those gaps and like get that kind of connection again established, like you can really kind of build up certain muscle groups in the body and even balance yourself out.
It's so funny because like this is what's neat about the three of us. This is where we're so different, right? Because I was such the aesthetic guy. Like I always gravitated to training like this. I was more of a unilateral dumbbell guy always. And it wasn't until hanging out with you guys that I really put more emphasis on the barbell training.
You know, of all strength athletes, the strength athlete that does the most unilateral training besides maybe really functional athletic type trainers, Bodybuilders.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Bodybuilders, they do way more unilateral.
Well, yeah, because we look the way I would write programming for myself when I was trying to build my body was I looked at like a piece of clay, and I'm like, oh, I need a little more on the right side over here in my rear delt. Oh, I need my left pec is way more developed than my right pec. So it always drove me towards this type of training because I cared more. I never cared like, oh, my bench is 2 whatever or 3 whatever. It's like I cared more about, oh, okay, look, I look imbalanced visually here. How do I go? And then obviously, if you have an imbalance left to right visually, you have to go dumbbells. You're not going to fix that with a barbell ever. And so I avoided barbell training for most of the time. And then this is probably unique. I don't know if you guys are this. My dumbbell chest press was equal to my barbell press. So it wasn't.
That's rare.
It wasn't for a long time before I could get my barbell to be significantly.
Because you did more dumbbell?
Because I did so much dumbbell.
I had such a huge discrepancy because I always did barbell.
Yeah, no, I was working out with 260 pounds worth of dumbbells, but I couldn't hardly do that with a barbell, if that. So
That's weird.
So I was stronger with. Yeah, but of course I did that all the time. You know what I'm saying? And for those reasons. So it's so. I mean, and again, this is why the advice I always like to give on here is that, the thing that will most likely benefit you the most is the thing that you never do.
But very few people do a cycle of unilateral.
Oh, yeah. No, it's so beneficial.
Like an actual.
Well, me too. I'm guilty of that. So even though I'm saying right now I did all dumbbells,
mix it in.
I still would mix. I still mix stuff in, and I'd still be doing both arms together. Rarely did I do like a pure, true like unilateral like the like our program. Speaking of coaching, I've been meaning to talk to you guys on air about this. Like, kind of cool. Also interesting. I'm curious how you guys your take. We're all so busy sometimes that stuff happens in the business, and other than agreeing, yeah, we're going to do that, or yes, whatever. Everybody kind of just divide and conquers, and we don't even get a chance to catch up on like the ideas or what we're doing. And we're doing something so unique in this business that we've never done, and we've avoided for a very long time for good reason. Yeah. But we're going to coach people.
I know.
I'm
actually excited.
I was going to ask you guys, like, you know what I'm excited about? Because it's a challenge. Like when on my way out of training clients as a fitness manager, I was only training a handful of people. The last few years of training clients, I only took really difficult clients. I never would take an easy client. It was never like, give me the client that's got a great metabolic rate already and it builds muscle easy. It was like, give me the client who's been struggling to lose 100 pounds their whole life. They've tried every diet. So they're like, okay, I'll take that person. And so I really enjoyed the challenge of helping somebody who hasn't been able to figure this out. I really feel like that's what we're going to get a lot of with the GLP-1 coaching program that we're doing. I think that's going to be really interesting.
I'm really excited because we're doing it together, so that'll be fun. We've never really trained or coached people together, so that'll be interesting. The other part that I'm very fascinated about is how the use of the GLP-1 is going to affect the coaching process. I have some very strong beliefs that I think are probably correct, but you never know. And that's one thing you learn about training people is you often don't know.
You're presented so many variables you didn't expect.
You have no idea. Yeah. So I wonder how this is going to affect behaviors, how it's going to affect the way that we're coaching them. Are there going to be challenges that are going to pop up that we typically didn't run into with other clients? And then, there's obviously a bit of a self-selection bias. These are people who are using a GLP-1, probably struggled in the past, who obviously listen to the show. So I'm going to guess that we're going to have more influence as trainers. Yeah. So one of the challenges with training people, one of the big initial hurdles, right? If you're a trainer or a coach, one of the initial hurdles you have to overcome is getting them to trust you and to work with the advice you're giving them. And that takes a second. Once you build that, it's a lot easier.
That's such a good point.
But these are all listeners.
They're all built. We already have that built in.
So we already have that authority, and they believe us. So I'm wondering if that's going to affect how effective we are.
What an interesting point.
Or if it's going to make it even harder for us because
no way.
I don't know.
Well, we get buy-in that way, which is a huge hurdle,
like
right?
Well, here's why I think it might be harder.
That's such a good point, though, because one of the hardest parts of being a trainer,
hands down,
is the ability to convince this person to fully buy in.
But is it earned? Totally. Is it earned buy-in in the same way? Because I was thinking about this last night. Like, here's what I think. I'm going to just say hypothesis, right? Is that they listen to the show. They've listened to us for a while. And it's like, oh, I'll do anything they tell me. So we're not going to necessarily get an accurate opinion or from, or, on what we can tell them to do and not. Because oftentimes when you're working with someone, you got to parse that out. Like, because people are motivated. They'll all do everything, but then you got to work back and be like, no, let's start here. It's going to be harder to read because they're like, I'll do anything. I'm in this mind pump group. I listen to your show. I wonder.
To Adam's point, I think it's going to be interesting to work with not just the clients, but the medical professionals in this setting, because it's like us to be able to kind of go through that process, which I've done before. And I was always like the same mentality. I wanted to help the clients that were the most difficult, the ones that had the most challenges, because that's where I always learned the most and grew the most. But I haven't worked this intensively with like other medical practitioners in that regard too, to learn about these peptides and all the different discrepancies between each one. So it's not just like your semaglutide versus your Ozempic versus like any different variation of that, how it's affecting each individual client. Like, I don't know what that looks like completely.
I mean, this is that is one of the things I'm most excited about. I mean, think about this for a second. And I know you just let Dr. Lauren in too. Now, so we have Dr. Lauren, Dr. Tina, Dr. Seeds.
Yeah, that's great.
He's
the best of the world.
3 of the leading experts in GLP-1s
that lecture all day about these
hundreds, now probably combined thousands of clients with GLP-1s. Tina has been doing it for 20 years, like working in this space. Seeds is up there with that amount of time too. You're talking about like heavy hitters in the medical field that are then supporting the 3 of us. And like you said, combined forces of troubleshooting when we have like, I don't know, I'm kind of excited to see like how impactful that can be.
I'm so psyched. And the part that gets me the most excited is we're going to be potentially setting the standard of what the narrative or what the structure is going to look like for working with people like this for other trainers and coaches.
Yeah.
Because there's a lot of potential for abuse or misunderstanding or incorrect coaching. Here you have somebody who's got this hunger signal that's blunted. And as a trainer, you may not realize that you need to coach to it because it's cool. They're just eating whatever I tell them. This is perfect. Not realizing, well, we got to still work on behaviors because at some point, ideally this person comes off. So maybe we should use this opportunity to work on other behaviors or strengthening other behaviors while this one right here is kind of being ignored versus, oh, cool, they just follow the meal plan or, listen to my advice and it's no problem. I don't have the same challenges I would have with another client type of deal. So, it's also a responsibility. I want to be able to communicate to this in a way to where we can tell other trainers and coaches, like, here's what you'll run into, here's what it looks like, and here's how we can how we can use this very potentially powerful medical intervention in a way to solve these problems, not as a way to get people on more prescription medications for the rest of their life.
Yeah.
So that's exciting for me. By the way, on that topic, they're already out with now oral versions of GLP-1s.
I've seen the commercials for those,
Now, I talked to our partners at nphormones.com, and they do have access to an oral version of a GLP-1.
Oh, they do?
They do. So instead of once a week injections with an insulin needle, it's you take a tablet every day. But the feedback has been that they're not as effective. So I know what the medical literature will say. It's the same thing. It's never the same thing. They have to alter it a little bit, right, so that it could get in the system and survive the process of going through the liver. But I talked to our friends over there, and they're like, when people use them, though, they just don't get the same results. But we'll see. Because
it seems to me, at least in like most things that I'm aware of, right, when there is an option between injectable or pill form,
of course, everyone's a pill.
Injectable is always going to be superior.
I know.
As far as healthy, safer.
Well, because you don't have to go through the liver, you bypass it.
You're stronger, all the above, like all 3. So anytime someone asks me about that, like, oh, I got like the testosterone cream or this or that, it's like, did you do not do the injectable for what reason? And I get it. If you're like, you have this crazy, you can't do an injection. I get it.
Right.
But if you don't, like, if that's not like a major, like you absolutely should opt to go that direction.
With hormones like testosterone in this, decades ago, 60s and 70s, maybe even the 50s, I think, they came out with versions of anabolics, which are similar to testosterone. And they methylated them to survive going through the liver, but that just made them liver toxic. Whereas if you did the straight injection, you didn't get that issue. So we'll see. But again, on this same topic, did you guys know that GLP-1s are now officially recommended to pediatrics for adolescent use? In fact, yeah, I know, dude. This is where, see,
I don't know if I'm a fan of that.
I'm not a fan. No. This is where I knew this would happen. I knew that there's too much money to be made. They're too effective, that they're going to push this through everywhere. In fact, if I'm not mistaken, it is now going to start being recommended as first line therapy.
So can we come out and say that to our audience right now, that for as much as you've heard us talk positively about GLP-1s, by no means are we at all supportive about letting kids take this. There's so many other things and resources that you should exhaust before you would ever even consider doing this.
Dude, and forming healthy habits, that's when it's most necessary, right? And to give them the opportunity to learn that process of, steering towards, activity, exercise, better eating habits. That all has to be educated and established, and to just jump them right to pharmaceuticals is a disservice.
Do you remember that Stanford leading doctor? I forgot who her name was. She was on a popular talk show, and she was being interviewed about obesity. And she said, you can diet and exercise all you want. It's a genetic disease.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, stop it.
Remember what we said?
Yeah.
They're preparing.
They're setting the table.
They're setting the table for, there's nothing you can do about this. You have to take a pharmaceutical.
Yeah.
Here's why I don't like kids taking this. I don't like kids taking this because your brain isn't really your brain becomes fully developed right around the mid-20s. Okay, so up until that point, there are parts of your brain that are still developing, and if you influence that development, you can permanently change the development of your brain. Whereas if you're an adult, then it's a lot harder to permanently change the development of your brain. It's very different.
Right.
So you're going to give a kid something that affects these receptors, which we don't know how that's going to affect the development of their brain as they get older, potentially causing permanent changes that were, and maybe subtle behavior changes or subtle changes in how they process or think or downstream. I don't know. I would not give my kid one of these things.
No.
There's no way. I know. It made me really upset. I saw it too. They're like, oh, it might be a first line therapy.
Yeah.
Crazy.
Switching gears a little bit. Did you guys hear me on the phone with Katrina before we got on? I don't know if you guys heard.
Sounded like something important.
I didn't know what. Yeah.
So I wanted to wait to tell you guys on here because it was so crazy. I'm like, I got to share with the guys, but I'll wait till we're live on air so the audience can hear. So Katrina calls me and she goes, "Oh my God, you got to listen to what just happened to one of her. She's got a what is it, her esthetician or whatever, who's been a family friend forever." Lady's a little bit older. She's had this business for like 50, 60 years, very successful. Her husband passed away a few years ago, and she knows Katrina's family well. They were all there. And she calls Katrina's mom and says the FBI just showed up at her house and knocked on her door because she was hacked. She was hacked a couple days before, and someone hacked into her computer system. FBI shows up at the door and asked for her personal information, social security number, driver's license, and $50,000. And she goes down to the bank and she gives them all those things. She gave them $50,000 cash.
It's not the FBI.
So they were just
it's not
masquerading as the FBI?
That's not the FBI, bro.
Yeah, no shit. The FBI didn't show up to your house and ask for $50,000.
No, yeah.
And they don't show up to your house if you get hacked.
They just happened.
Did they have badges?
Oh yeah, she said she said they were fully.
Oh my God.
So she gave them $50,000 in cash.
She went down to the bank and pulled $50,000 out, and then also gave them Social Security, driver's license information.
What a hustle!
I know. So they had
that
already,
sounds like something that wouldn't work. You know what I mean? But
get the right person.
The right person, right? The right person who someone who's older, has this kind of cash, gets hacked, right? So she's not already like a tech person.
Older.
Gets hacked.
That sucks, man. That makes me so mad. Older, the older the people in advanced age are prime targets.
Yes,
every time.
That's so. And Katrina and I were talking I bet it was someone who knew who she was. Yeah. Probably went to her business, knows that she's older. Her husband died a few years ago, so she's not gonna have a husband to consult with. Show up at her house all geared up in your FBI stuff, and the day after you're getting hacked.
Do they have video footage or anything?
Oh, I didn't ask if she's got like a ring or something like that to get footage of them. But even then,
piece of shit.
You know what? By the way, speaking of that question,
slime.
We have all these cameras. Literally,
that's nothing.
They don't do shit. Cops don't do nothing
unless they can connect them to different crimes, or they know the face, or whatever.
Yeah, or you have like a license plate, or a really way.
Movies make you think like
they do make you feel that. And I've been in a situation. I've had two of my cars stolen from in front of my house, and I have footage of the people stealing it.
Yeah,
and
were both ex-girlfriends?
No. Those are the car keys. Different situation, Sal. now. Different situations. So,
Okay,
different time in my life, bro. Different time in my life. This type of stuff I don't attract that type of bullshit anymore. So, I had video footage, and I'm like, yeah, we're gonna get these motherfuckers. You know what I'm saying? I got the footage of them. Show the cops. They're like, okay, cool. They take notes and they leave. Never hear back again. So
I would want that for myself. I would think, just so I'd see their face. And but yeah, I know.
Walk around like a vigilante.
Yeah, well, you know what I was doing for the
Sleuth.
Hey, for
Bro,
the next
there's
2
ways
months,
to
I was
target
looking at
people.
every blue Suburban I could look every one.
That's what I'm saying, dude. There's some crafty people on the internet, man. You just gotta hire people.
You're right. Have you seen
They're way better than cops.
Way
dude.
better, bro.
Come on.
You put it on Reddit or you put it on some.
No, you're right. Okay,
4chan.
so where I'm at in my life with income,
I would get
I would
gangster like
probably
that.
spend money on something like that now.
Hell
Now,
yeah.
like 25 years old, I wouldn't even have the resources.
If it was
to do that.
my grandma,
Yeah.
I would
Yeah,
spend.
my grandma? Are you
If it
kidding
was
me?
my grandma, I would spend 150,000 to get her 50 grand.
That's a fair point. If that was my grandmother,
for real. I'd spend 3 times as much to get her money back and get them thrown in jail.
That's a good point.
You know what I'm saying?
That's a good point.
Pieces of crap.
But I mean, you'd be
sucks.
surprised like how little
I told you guys
how little those cameras help.
Yeah.
I know.
They really don't
unfortunate.
do as much as you think they would do. And like even if you got a great picture of them, if they're not already in a system already where that they can identify them and stuff like that, it's like they don't have a name or anything like that. It's just like, oh, cool, we have a very good description of this person. If they pop up again or they get pulled over, we'll let you
Yeah.
know.
I told you about my buddy got scammed like that, right? He got called, and he's not an older. He was young. He was in his 20s with this stuff. And I still, by the way, till this day, if he ever gets a little like, oh, I'm an awesome guy, I'll bring it up just to remind him that he fell for this. He got called.
It's like a good friend.
Yeah, dude. He got called. He got called by the IRS, right?
That to me, those are the best ones.
Oh, bro.
because they call the people right around tax
Yep.
time.
Yeah. Oh, you did this with your taxes, whatever. We
It's
need
like
to do this.
everybody's fear.
And they're like, we will settle because we found this. We'll settle for you, but you got to pay us, right now or whatever for this fee. He went and got cash card. What do they call the cash
Yes,
cards or
yes.
whatever? Gave them the numbers over the phone, bro. A bunch of them. Like
So
15
hey,
in a
that's
row.
I almost
He gave
got
him like $8,000.
I almost got nailed that same way too, and the only reason why I didn't was that's what gave it away was when I had to go get a bunch of. I'm like, wait a second.
Why would the IRS?
But
want money
other
like
than that, I mean, because here's the thing: like everybody has probably done something on their taxes before where they're like worried, like, well, I hope that's okay. That should be okay. Maybe it's not. Maybe it is. And then you get
That's
a
your
thing.
own guilty conscience.
Yeah,
dude.
totally.
Oh shit!
And
the
then you
IRS
get a message that says like, "Hey, we reassessed your taxes. You owe $16,000 right now. If you don't pay at least $2,500 of it, you're gonna get penalties." And you're like, "Oh shit, I better send that over right now." And it just sounds realistic, and I bet they're so successful when they get that. But until you ask for like a Visa card, that should be the giveaway.
So someone comes up to your house with badges at the FBI.
Dude.
What do you do?
I mean,
Tell them to F off. I mean, what do you do?
I want to see it.
That's why
That's what they probably did. Though.
I know, but think about that at her defense. You know what I'm saying? Like, and she just got
it
hacked.
could've
So
been
the
a lot-
day before, she's like freaking out. I got hacked, and then all of a sudden, the FBI shows up and goes like, "Hey,
So
we know
they
you
did
got
the
hacked."
hacking too.
Yes.
Oh,
Yeah.
wow.
That's why it was like an elaborate plan. How smart is that though? They hack her, so she's
Now,
already.
see, I probably would have fallen for it up until the money. Up until the wait a minute, why do I got to give you cash?
Right.
That
Yeah,
doesn't
that
make
doesn't
any
make any
sense.
That's
sense.
that. You know what that is? That's probably just greed. They probably go, "Give me your driver's license, social security number," and you
Let me
willingly
see how
do.
hard we can push her.
Yeah, and then they go like, "You know what? Here's the deal. It's going to cost us this much to get this done." And then they probably did something like that to get that because. If just her giving her driver's license and her social security would have been really bad news, from someone who already hacked her.
Yeah.
Because that means they're probably already got access to her bank accounts. And if they get
All they need is that.
Yeah, all they need that. And then it's game on. They can get into everything.
I had another client who was older who his computer was kind of glitching, and then he got a phone call from Microsoft. Oh, we're gonna get on. We're gonna fix it. Give us access to your desktop. Gave them access virtually, and then they went in and just took money from his account and did all that stuff.
You know, the other one that's happened to me before is where they buy things and they ship it to your house and then they just take it off your front porch. I came home one time.
Why would they do that? Because they don't want to get it.
So it doesn't go to their address. Nothing ties to them. So they steal your credit card online. Then they ship it to your house because it's normally attached to your credit card.
So that wasn't your double-headed dildo?
No, it wasn't. No.
There was I don't know if it was tied to like eBay or whatever, but there was like some automated response, like some hacker had figured out. So if you bought something, they would like notify you, oh, this was a fraudulent purchase or whatever, but it was like the hacker that was like sending out that message and then be like, can you check your bank accounts? And then they would literally like clone your banks like homepage.
Yeah.
So it looked totally legit. And then you would write your stuff in, and then they would get it that way and just rip and
That's
steal.
a text. That's a popular text scam they do. And the banks will tell you, we'll never text you to log into your stuff like that. And that's a total scam that it will send you your text.
I know a lot of people are still falling for that one.
No.
I got freaked out. I mean, the thing that freaked me out the most was that there's recently how some people have been getting phone calls from AI. And it's their kid's voice or someone they know. And it's like, help, Dad, I need help. You know, whatever.
So nefarious.
Terrifying.
It's crazy that, dude, it's just like lack of morals completely, right? Like to do that. It's like, that's so it's evil to me. I don't know. Mimicking somebody's voice and then like,
you got to be such a bad person to sit around to do that. Dude.
Crazy.
Yeah. You got
so awful.
Yeah, and a coward on top of it. You're not even stealing it like a person with, a little bit of bravery.
I know, dude.
Do it on the phone like a little,
like, come on.
Oh, man. Anyway, I got to tell you, did your kids do this, Justin, when you were little? Maybe Max does this now, but my kid will decide to hide. He'll just run away and hide, and then I can't find him. Is this a thing? He just started doing this.
Yeah, I mean, they do hide and seek.
You got yourself a rebel, bro.
Yeah,
bro. He's unique.
He's special,
bro. He'll be doing something, and he'll be on the couch. He'll be on the couch.
Does your kid ever light your shit on fire? Like, you just get some match. And
I didn't even find him till the next day.
No, bro. I hear this, but I hear little footsteps. I'm like, and I go look for him, and I call him out, call his name out. He doesn't answer. I'm like, damn, I got to look for him. So I come up with ways of getting him to come out. Like, oh, you don't want to play with this toy?
Oh, I found this lollipop. Is this yours?
See, but then I got to give him a lollipop. So I've been doing that. So I'm trying to figure out ways that he did it again this morning, man. He just took off and I couldn't find him. And I try not to panic because I'm like, well, he's here somewhere.
Yeah.
So I tried to wait it out, and it worked. And I waited him out for a little bit, and it did work.
That's funny.
Papa, what are you doing? Like,
oh my god, dude.
Oh my god, dude.
He is a handful, bro.
Your kid didn't do that?
No. Max did play good hide and seek. So when we play hide and seek, he is patient and he will hide and stay quiet for a while. So he's good about that. But he'll get scared after a while. Like, so he won't stay hidden for long. Like he can hide for a while, but if I decided I'm just not going to come find him, like he'll come out.
I told him I always tell him stories. He always wants me to tell him stories. So I pull from all kinds of different memories, or I'll make one up. And also I started with like mythology stories. And I told him this story. You guys remember the movie Clash of the Titans, the original one?
Yeah.
Great movie, right? Did you watch that one?
I don't think I've seen that.
Gold Owl.
I think a long time ago you brought this up.
It's so good. But anyway, there's a scene where Perseus has to kill Medusa and use her head to make the Kraken turn to stone. He's got to fight this big sea monster. Only way to do it is so I tell him the whole story of how he got to Medusa, and he's like, well, how did he not get turned to stone? I'm like, he used his shield as a mirror. So I'm talking about how he's walking backwards and using the shield. Anyway, later on that day, he got one of our pots, one of the lids that's kind of shiny, and I see him like walking backwards with it like this. So like, what are you doing? He's like, I'm like Perseus. I'm gonna fight Medusa. Like, oh, this is hilarious.
that is funny. I tell you guys that. So I've shared about Kumon, right? That Max has been doing that, and we did it first for reading. It had a lot of success in that, and then the teacher recommended it. Like, I know he's really good at math, but let's see what we can do with pushing him and stuff like that, since he likes it, and he always prefers to do that because he likes it. So we're like, okay,
just go with it.
Yeah, go with it, right? I'm not, and just because he's ahead in it and stuff like that doesn't mean. So the other day, Katrina's doing this hilarious, right? And I'm sitting like on the couch, and he's between me, and then they're sitting there and they're doing this. And one of the exercises, it'll be like, there'll be like 26 items, and so it's teaching him to count that high, and he's got to count the numbers, and then he has to tell her what it is, and then he has to trace the number. That's kind of like how it works. And he didn't really want to do it. And Katrina's like, come on, we got to do Kumon. And part of our deal is like, before he gets to do certain things, like we have to get schoolwork done, and we're training him to do this thing. It's like, okay, well, you don't have to do it. We tell him he doesn't have to, but then we don't get to do whatever thing is that we want to do. Okay, so then he'll like, begrudgingly sometimes he'll do it, right? And so he's like sitting down to do it, and she like pulls up the first training screen, and you could tell he's just like not in the mood to do it. And she's like, okay, Max, what is it? And so he goes, 26. And she's just like, Max, you need to count the numbers. And I look and I go, honey, that's 26. And she's like, how did you count that 20? And he can, like, he's so good with, because of the number blocks things. Number blocks teaches you how. Is he
looking at him like picture-wise?
Yes. He can, and they row him in fives.
Bro,
so he goes 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, and then 26. And then he knew there's one on the next row, so he knew right away it was 26.
That's talent.
Yeah. I know. And she's like, she got mad, and then I go, honey, he's counting.
Honey,
him.
You're wrong.
Yeah. I said, that is 26. And she's just like, and then she's like counting it, and she figures it out. And she's like, how did you do that? I'm like, that's because what do you mean, how's he doing it? He's just going 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, and then he adds 1. I'm like, She's like, oh my God. She goes, I wouldn't even have done that. I would have counted
That's
each
so
one.
great.
Yeah. I said, no, he's doing them in 5s. And I remember when he did Number Blocks, that TV show, they would teach him he would count to 200 by 5s, 5, 10, 15, 20, 25. So they've already taught him, and then and there's visuals.
Yeah.
So he knows how to look at something and see it's paired in 5s.
Wow.
And so he does the math really quick. But so it was really,
great.
it was really
That's
funny
funny,
because
dude,
she
yeah.
was really annoyed already because he wasn't listening. And then obviously he can't get mad at him. He's doing it hella fast.
He's
It was
right.
Like, yeah, I got this.
Yeah.
Did he ever go through a phase of like lying? Does he do that, or has he done that?
No.
Wow.
We haven't had anything like
Damn,
that.
dude, my
Like,
kid dude just lying.
That's why sometimes I feel bad about telling stories with him because I'm like, the kid is like, my thing is this. I got the other side, right?
Yeah.
He's very timid and sensitive and very soft-spoken and emotional. Like he can get like really easy discouraged, right?
Yeah.
And like that. So that's the stuff that what we struggle with, right? Like he doesn't do well with things that he's not good at or that he's challenged with. Like he can get emotional. Other kids can make him feel like, can make him cry really easy. And so that's definitely going to be my thing, right? I like mental toughness and perseverance and like not quitting. And those are the things that I am challenged with. The other stuff, dude, the kid doesn't talk back. He's never thrown a tantrum. He doesn't get loud. He doesn't like none of those things. Like all those things are great.
No,
but then I have the other side.
I realize he's really sweet, really loving, very, very loving kid, but he's also just, she'll just lie. Like he does this thing where he goes to the bathroom. He wants privacy. He's like, I want privacy. So you walk out, close the door, and then he'll say, okay, I'm done. You got to go in there. And every single time, if we forget the toilet paper roll on the whatever the dispenser,
undoes it all.
all of it, it's on the floor every time. And so we know now, take it off, right?
Yeah.
But if you forget, you go in there and you see it on the floor, and I'll be like, what happened? And you're like, he'll just lie, be like, I don't know what happened. He just did it stuff. Or he'll do something to his sister. What happened? I don't know. She just fell. I don't know. And so Jessica encourages me. She goes, don't try to confront him on the lie because it's age appropriate. And what am I going to get out of him? Like, oh, you lied, So he'll say something like, oh, she just fell, but that's so weird. I'll pick her up. Or, oh, that's weird. It fell by itself. So it's like, at some point, dude, I'm going to tell. Like,
yeah. What point? So what's?
Oh, really? Look at the camera.
Yeah. What's her theory on what point do you point out that, son, that's a lie? You're lying to dad.
Yeah. When they start to get a little older, it's age appropriate for the lie. And also at some point, and there have been times when you let him have the lie and then tells he's honest. Actually, this happened, type of deal. Because otherwise you get into this like, no, tell me the truth.
Right.
And then what he's going to do? No, I didn't do it. Or he's afraid or fearful.
Yeah.
But little,
Yeah.
God, it's so
Trying
funny.
to think. Yeah, the biggest challenges I've always had is like the bullheaded, especially with Everett, it's just like an immovable object. If he has something stuck in his mind in a certain thing, it's like to convince him otherwise is like it's just moot. Like you're not gonna win. Like we've had a point
It turns
where
into a power struggle.
it's power struggle, and it's like, and he'll hold out.
Where he gets that from?
I don't know. It's probably from my wife. No, it's me. It's not her.
That's got to be to me, I would think that has to be one of the hardest things because you see yourself.
It's very hard. Yeah, it's very hard.
Like you can only get so mad when you're looking at a mirror, right?
Yeah. Because and that's the thing is if I've had to like really work on my communication and like how to portray, like explain the why. Like that's really like he needs that. If you can't really articulate the why of like, I need you to do it this way, or this is not good for you because, and then X, Y, Z, and I have to like go through this long process of like, explaining all the reasons for him to then finally kind of soften up to the idea.
Yeah.
But then it has to be his idea.
Right.
And so then you got to back off, and then you got to give him space.
Yeah.
And this is the hardest part for my wife because it's like she's just like, wants to just dig into it and like, Argh! And I'm like, he needs to like process all that, take that time to now realize like I have to change this part of what I'm doing because of everything that you guys told me, and like, and then you have to let it grow and become a new behavior. But it's like, dude, sometimes you just don't have the patience.
Yeah. But I mean, I imagine that's a really good exercise for you then, because and this is an area that I'm always trying to stay on top of this, challenge myself. Max is relatively easy. He's not like stubborn or like hard-headed about stuff like that. But I've always told myself, like, I never want to default to because dad told you, or just, you know what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
And so if he questions or challenges, why? Why do I have to put my seatbelt on? Why do I gotta do this? Like, okay, well, let me explain. If you don't, we get in an accident, you go fly through the windshield and you die.
Yeah.
So that's why we have to.
Whoa, we might want to go a little different though.
No, I'm like straight.
Adam
dude.
is like so honest.
I am. I'm so honest.
Here's a
Like,
picture of what
sometimes
happened.
Katrina's like, whoa, dude, why do you say that? I'm like, he asked me. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm gonna be honest with him and tell him that's how it is. Like, he ain't gonna fuck around and ask that no more. You know? So he's like this now. He gets in the car.
He's like, someday we're gonna die.
Never tell you when I traumatized my oldest. He wouldn't let us clip his toenails. He just didn't like his feet to be touched or whatever.
Yeah.
So I was getting so frustrated because I'd have to hold him to do the thing. He'd cry. So I said, "Come here, I want to show you something." And I went on the internet and I pulled up ingrown toenails, pictures, and I showed him. Until this day, he's like, dude, that traumatized me.
Oh my god!
Because he was little when he was a terrible dad.
Yeah.
Moment.
But don't you think that's a lot of parents? I mean, I know my parents did that where I just had to do it because mom and dad said so.
Because I said so, and this is the power dynamic, and we rule the roost, and you're going to be kicked out of the house. It was always, you're getting kicked out of the house if you don't abide by XYZ all the time.
Wow.
And I just didn't, it's just, I'm trying to do it differently in that regard.
Right.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's actually, I just remembered something kind of funny with Everett. So my sister-in-law was over and with Courtney, and they were talking to him. He's very, I guess, like a little bit esoteric. I have very deep conversations with Everett, and I've talked about this. So he thinks about things in a very interesting way. But they're talking, and like he's had a little bit of sex education, but not like, he doesn't know, like, really how it all works yet. He thinks he has an idea. He's an older brother, and like he knows terms, but like, you put the math together and it's not really,
it's not adding up yet.
Doesn't add up.
Yeah.
But which is great. I love him. Like, let's keep this innocence, going. So they were making a joke because like we have all these peaches in our backyard, and they had to like go gather them and had people over, and she was over there to kind of like help like pick these peaches off, and they made some joke. It's like as they're driving, they're talking about it, and it was that song from like Steve Miller, like you shake your peaches. There was some line in there about that, and he's referring to sex in some regard, right? And so they both kind of laughed about it, and they were talking about this innuendo, and Everett was like, I'm trying to figure out what you guys are laughing about. I know it's probably some kind of metaphor, and he's like, and it's probably has to do with like, men and women and something regards to sex. And they were just like, I didn't know how to respond to that, dude. It was like such like like he's trying to like put it all together, like, and literally calls it out. And they're just like, no, it's just a song.
I love it when they do. What does that say up there, Doug? You're the cutest thing I ever did see. I really love your
peaches. I want to shake your tree.
Peaches want to shake your tree.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So
it's a great
shake
song.
your
back
tree.
in the day when they kept it a little,
That was a
not so direct.
little more hidden, yeah.
Well, I remember when my parents, I got in trouble because I was, what grade is Everett in? I was in 4th grade when this happened. 3rd or 4th grade.
No, he's going into 6th.
Oh, so he's even older. So I was in like 4th or 5th grade, and or 3rd or 4th grade, and who wrote the song "Knockin' Boots"?
Oh, that's R. Kelly.
No. Before R. Kelly, like Candyman, knocking boots.
Was he first?
Yeah. Ooh, boy, I love you so. Never ever gonna let you go. Once I get my hands on you.
Yeah.
That song, and my parents like freaked out because it's like knocking boots is referring to them having sex, and it was like, and that's like so not even that. I think it's even more PC, and I didn't know. I'm walking around the house singing it, and so my first, what are you singing? Like,
we had like Color Me Bad. I want to sex you up. That was like in our 6th grade.
Yeah, that was definitely a little more.
I was singing that. I remember from my parents. Dude, not happy about that.
You were telling me about. I was thinking about the whole lying thing. Here I'll give you an example of changing my son's behavior, helping him in a way that most people might not realize. So he's got his younger sister is only a year and a half younger than him, and sometimes she gets on his nerves, takes his toys, he fires back or whatever. But rather than hammering him about it, Jessica's done a really good job of this. She'll say, "Tell me first if she does anything, and then she jumps on it when he does. So if he's like, Dolly is doing this, she'll jump on it, and that's his toy. That's not yours or whatever. Because of that, he's more likely now to share and more likely to be kind.
Because he feels backed up. Yeah, he feels backed up.
He feels backed up.
Defend himself.
Yeah, because she can be a little turkey too, dude. She's funny. I caught her the other day. They were on the couch together, and I looked over, and sure enough, she decided to lay down and just kick him with her feet while they're watching, just mess with him. And she's trying to get a reaction. He's being real cool.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh man,
I mean, it's so interesting watching because my godson and goddaughter are like yours. Yeah. And they're a little bit ahead of you, and the daughter is the real tear. Because their son was like that, just like Aurelius and stuff like that, and then the daughter has got every bit of it. And sent a video to me like a couple nights ago, and she's got him in the headlock on the couch. You know what I'm saying? She's like 2, bro. She's like 2 years old, and she's like wrapping up her older 5-year-old brother in the headlock and like wrestling him. I'm like, oh my god, she's a daredevil, dude. Just bombing off the slide, and like she'll run to the pool, and just jump. She can't even swim, dude. Just jump in the. Oh
man, that's scary.
She is insane, dude.
Kids
like.
Hilarious.
Oh yeah, no,
I love it when girls are like that.
I know, it's so cool to see her like that. She's a spitfire, dude. But I mean, she's too the type. She just will bolt on you. Like she wants to go do something. She's obsessed with water. So like, if you pull her out of the pool, or it's time to stop after it's been 6 hours in the pool,
she'll
yeah, she'll.
You say they get a leash for her? Like my brother has a leash for his brother. His son. It's like a backpack.
You did one of those.
Dude, it's like a backpack.
Oh my god, I used to make fun of people that did that, dude.
Listen, this kid.
I get it. It's probably like necessary, right?
No, you understand.
I mean, I get it when you have a kid like that. It just looks so bad.
But listen, he doesn't know how to walk. All he does is run, and he runs to whatever he wants. So my brother's like, I have to, and I know my nephew. He's happy the whole time he's doing it. We had a big family party, and all of a sudden our sprinklers are. I'm like, what's going on? I run over there, and of course he's back there turning the dials, and I'm like, no, Angelo, you can't do that. And he laughs, runs away. As soon as I move away from there, he runs back, laughing the whole time. Like, you don't like get that you can't do this.
Yeah, dude.
Yeah, so my brother's got to keep a leash on him.
It's funny he did one of those.
Anyway, I was gonna tell you guys, we just talked with Dr. Cabral, and this will be a episode that we'll release later on. We were talking about cortisol, and he said it would be a good idea for me to cold plunge first thing in the morning.
Yeah, you and Justin, not me and Doug.
No. So I think I'm going to do it. I think I'm going to get a cold plunge for my house. I've been toying with the idea. Mainly because, getting in freezing water for me is so challenging.
Now, explain to our audience why you two are better candidates and not so much Doug and I.
So because of our cortisol tests, my cortisol probably is more appropriate, right? Raises in the morning, comes down in the evening. So it's okay for me to get an extra boost of cortisol in the morning to give me more energy or that little bit of a stress response. Don't worry about cortisol, ladies and gentlemen, by the way. You need to have cortisol in the morning. If your cortisol is dysfunctional, it means you probably should reduce your stress. And cold plunging, the reason why there's so many health benefits like improved energy, reduced inflammation,
it's a stress.
Converting white fat to brown fat, so it's more thermogenic. All that stuff, all these great benefits. It's a hormetic response, right? Mm-hmm. It's a little bit of a stress on the body, not unlike exercise. And if your stress is already at that limit, you probably don't want to cold plunge. But if you're feeling like, I could add something to really take things to another level, then
I think I'm going to do it. Anecdotally, so when I was at Park City and they had the cold plunge there, and it was like a family thing. We just we're like, you know what we're going to do? Well, besides Ethan, not to throw him under the bus, but he didn't do it. But yeah, we all did the cold plunge first thing in the morning. It was just like so exhilarating. It was just like I'm always looking for that with the caffeine version of it. And I just don't have that. I don't produce that naturally in the morning. Yeah. And so this is one of those things I was asking him, because sometimes I guess you're just not producing enough cortisol. I think somewhere in the middle of the day is where I'm at my peak, and then it's kind of tapers off. So I'm not as bad about sleep at night, but honestly, that first introduction to the day in the morning is so rough for me. It just has been that way for so long. I need some other introduction of something to help with that besides caffeine.
I'm thinking about doing it. So I'll get myself a plunge for my house, get in there, and then go gym. So I'll get that pre-workout effect.
See, I would love for you to do it because you're so consistent with your training and your workouts in the morning. Yeah. And I have loved plunging before working out. I think it's the best.
I know.
I think it craps on any pre-workout that I've ever had. That's how effective that feeling is going into a workout. And there's something about too, like the lifting weights, and it takes a while for your body to warm up after you do that plunge. And so you stay cool for like the first half of your workout. Yeah. So you're not even like, hot and overheating until midway. And so the lifting weights from that is just,
performance-wise, I always remember that one study with like the gloves where they put their hands in these
crazy
cold gloves. Like in the recovery was insane.
Well, no, the strength gain in one set.
Yeah.
And it wasn't like they worked out over. It was like just put you did a max of 30. Yeah. Here, put this thing on that cools down your blood.
A huge factor.
Try it again. 70. It's insane.
That was our first introduction to Huberman. Yeah. Huberman did that.
Talked about that.
That's right.
That was him who did that, who tested that.
Yeah, he's had some gems like
with
that
somebody.
Sure.
And I remember that was our first introduction to him when he first was doing that research. And we were all like, get out of here. That can't be real.
I need to
They had some stat that was like, the person did like a ridiculous amount more body weight dips. I can't remember.
I know.
That's right. It was a body weight dips.
Yes, it was body weight dips, and it was just not believable. It was so crazy. When they went from they could do 20 or 25.
That's what I'm saying. It was like quadruple.
Yes, it was like
it wasn't like 10% increase.
Yes, it was like
hundreds of percent increase.
It was incredible. So yeah, and you're so consistent with everything.
I should probably do it, especially because I like hot. I love sauna. I love steam. It's pleasurable. I'll go in there and whatever. Cold. I hate cold. But
but I would love to hear you go in to the plunge first, get your workout, and then do your sauna afterwards. Yeah. Like that has to be like the ultimate like setup for you. Yeah. And then
who would like it? My 3-year-old would love it. He loves cold, bro. He won't let me give him a normal bath.
Yeah, like Everett he still likes cold too. Huh?
Listen, this is so weird. My daughter's the same way. My youngest.
Interesting.
I don't understand what it is. I'll give them a bath and I'll make the water lukewarm. Okay. She'll cry. He doesn't want to go. I have to put cold water on and make it basically almost cold. If I made it cold, he'd probably like it even more.
Wow.
I know.
That's interesting.
Weird.
That is weird.
So strange. Huh. I don't get it.
So I have a shout out. I want to shout out. I mentioned her in the show, Dr. Lauren. So Dr. Lauren Fitz. Fritz or Fitz? Let me look what her page is. She is, make sure, I'm pretty sure it's Dr. Lauren. Yeah, Dr. Lauren Fitz. So Lauren is Lauren. So Dr. Lauren Fitz, all one word. She's an MD. She's going to be inside our GLP-1 group. But if you don't follow her, she puts out incredible content already. She's been following Mind Pump for a long time, and really excited to bring her in the forum and help with the admin side of things with us. But she's a great follow if you're not following her on Instagram already.
Probiotics have been shown to improve gut health, reduce inflammation, of course, help digestion, clear up brain fog, help with skin issues. We all know probiotics are good for you, but there's only one company that I work with when it comes to probiotics. That's Seed. Seed is the world's best probiotic, hands down. They have the world's leading scientists and individuals in the space that have developed Seed and work for that company and advise that company. It's an incredible product. Go check them out. Go to seed.com/mindpump. Use the code 25MindPump. Get yourself 25% off your first month's order of Seed's Daily Symbiotic. All right, here comes the show.
First question is from Carter Fitness Coaching. When you press overhead, are you supposed to have the shoulders down and back in a pack position or let the scapula move freely? How much upper trap activation should be present?
There's actually a lot of debate around this.
There is,
which is quite interesting. It depends on who I'm working with. If there are a lot of neck tightness in the individual, shoulder type issues, I'll train them to be able to press in a packed position. That being said, if you've got good shoulder health and you're pressing, I don't think you need to think about this. I think you just need to press the weight up and support it. But it is good to learn.
Maintaining tension.
Yes, it is good to learn to be able to do this. It is good to be able to separate elevating the scapula with pressing overhead. I do think it's a good thing to learn and train a little bit, but I mean, I don't
think there should be any controversy around this. I think it is literally that simple. I think if you have a client who does not have issues here, that doesn't have this like excessively rounded forward shoulders and they're shrugging and complaining of neck pain and stress all the time, if they got overall good posture, good mobility, they can retract, they can move their scapula around well, and we're in a pressing motion like that, and there's movement. I mean, the traps are a stabilizer in that. So there's no way of getting around. The traps are going to work, right? So it's completely normal for them to be incorporated in the movement. Now they were complaining of like, oh, when I do this, all I do is feel it in my traps. Like, okay, well then maybe there's some coaching there. But if there's no complaint and they can move freely in the trap area and their shoulder girdle, like, I mean, I'm totally okay with movement there. It's if and only if I have a client that we're concerned about that, am I going to put a lot of emphasis on that?
Yeah, the only kind of caveat I guess I would add is that if now we're in an overhead position, I'm holding it for a substantial amount of time, or I'm walking with it, I'm going to prefer a packed shoulder in that situation, and that's mainly just
anchored.
Yeah, just because it's anchored and it's you can control that a lot more effectively. But in terms of overall reps and like allowing that kind of full range of motion, and you have good stability and mobility and support, then I have no issues.
Yeah, so I have a specific example of when I encourage somebody to pack. So my wife probably has a herniated disc somewhere in her cervical spine, and we've identified this because she'll just from the pain and some previous injury when she was younger. And so what I'll have her do, or let me back up, when she does overhead presses, if she's not careful, it could aggravate that area. So what I'll have her do is overhead holds with a packed shoulder. Mm-hmm. Why? Because it kind of creates a little bit of traction in the neck. Otherwise, you start to get the shrugging as you press motion. Right. The head tips back a little bit, and you start to get that pinching in the cervical spine. So I have her elongate with the packed shoulder, hold her arm up above her head, and then it becomes correctional. It actually takes pain away. Yeah. Rather than contributing pain. Now, when I would train beginners, I didn't focus on this unless I noticed something like that. It's like I got neck tightness, and then I would stand behind them and help them separate the two movements so that we could press up while depressing the scapula. And I do think that's an important thing to be able to do. I think it's good to be able to isolate or separate those movements. And then when you're getting strong and you feel good, then it's okay.
You know what it kind of reminds me of? It kind of reminds me of how we all coach seated row.
Yeah.
Right. So the initial movement on teaching someone seated row, I might keep them in this kind of fixed retract position to get the understanding of the movement.
Example.
Never allowing protraction.
Right. Never allowing protraction of that. I'm like real fixed. Okay, we get that down. We understand that. We've got no issues with that. Okay, now let me show you how to take that all, roll the shoulders forward and pull and take them through full range of motion. So it's dependent on the client, right? On if I'm going to stress that as a coach and a trainer. And this again is what makes you have a job, right? Is the ability to decipher whether this is a client that we need to put a lot of emphasis on the packing of the shoulder and this perfect strict form, or is this somebody who doesn't have any issues there and they have good range of motion, good control of the scapula? It's like, hey, that's fine. Go ahead, fully extend and come all the way down.
In fact, don't even bring it up. Just press.
That's right. I'm not even going to worry about it.
Next question is from Tina Baccarella, CPT. I tend to attract older clients as a personal trainer. I love helping them reverse the aging process. However, what are the best ways to approach severe upper cross syndrome? What seems to be the issue I am addressing the most? That seems to be the issue I'm addressing the most.
Yeah, Doug, if you wouldn't mind looking up the official description of upper cross syndrome. So for people listening who don't know what that is, basically your shoulders come forward.
Yeah, protracted shoulder girdle.
And your head tends to come forward.
That's what it is.
So I'm exaggerating it right now. If I were, most people don't look the way I'm doing it.
It's kind of like shrimp posture.
Yes. And so what you got to understand about these deviations from what would be considered ideal, quote unquote, posture. I say quote because there is no perfect ideal, but what would be considered moving away from ideal. The reason why these exist is because your body has identified some kind of imbalance, some kind of weakness or instability. What does it say there? Common condition that causes an imbalance in the muscles of the neck, shoulders, and chest. Well, they didn't explain it very well.
We did a better job.
Thanks, Webster.
Yeah. So what ends up? So your body identifies a tightness or a weakness or an instability, and what it does is it moves you in a position to feel safe for you to be in. So although this is not an ideal position and it's causing tension in your neck and maybe some shoulder pain if you reach up above your head too much or limits your movement, your body has deemed this a safer position to be in, because when you move outside of it, there's instability. And so your body's actually trying to protect you. Okay. So it's no different than if my knee was injured, my body wouldn't let me bend my knee very much, similar to that. Okay. Except it's not necessarily an injury. It's just some kind of instability. So because that's causing this, To correct it, you have to strengthen whatever is weak, and you have to tell your body or convince your body essentially that it's safe to move outside of this position. Typically with this, with upper cross syndrome, if I can strengthen their ability to pull their shoulder blades back and down, right? So retract and depress. And if I can strengthen the muscles or the movement, I'll say, of them to be able to give themselves a double chin, if I could do those two things and work and strengthen those, then the body will naturally move out of this compensatory pattern of upper cross syndrome. So exercise, what does that look like? A machine row is my favorite for this because the machine is chest supported. Less things for them to worry about. They're going to row back. I typically stand behind them as a trainer and I help them pull their shoulders back and down. If they can't do that, I smash on their traps a little bit, get them the traps to relax a little bit. Then we try it again. And we got to strengthen this down and back.
Strengthen the posterior chain.
That's it. And then once we get that stronger, in fact, here's what you'll notice with upper cross syndrome. You'll do 3 sets of what I said, which by the way, don't go heavy. As soon as you go heavy, your body's like, I'm going to go back to this safer position of upper cross syndrome. So you got to go light enough to where they don't automatically go to that bad position. Strengthen this down and back retraction of the shoulder blades. You'll notice within 3 sets, they'll stand up and there'll be some alleviation of it. You'll notice the posture automatically looks better.
Oh yeah.
Right off the gate. In other words, it's not permanent.
Yeah. First of all, this is extremely common. This is actually common even with younger people.
It's less common that someone doesn't have this.
Yeah, exactly. It's especially at advanced age. You're getting someone older who doesn't have upper cross syndrome is really, really rare. So there's some staple moves. Seated row, I think we all agree, is the staple strength building. I love prone cobras on the floor. Yes. I love prone cobras on the stability ball. I love taking progressing that exercise to where I have like a rubber band and they get in that prone cobra position and then they kind of like row to where they're pulling their shoulder blades back and down to add a little bit of strength, but then just kind of body weight component. So I'm going to do a lot of things like that that are strengthening those muscles. Basically the anterior delt, the pectoris major, those muscles are overactive, short and tight, and the ones in the back are like we're less connected to. So I want to get better connected to those. I want to get they're weaker. I want to get them stronger, and that's what's going to pull that posture back into
just doing our wall test.
Zone 1
repeatedly.
Like
that. Honestly, as much as you possibly could have them do it throughout the day, it's like it's just you have to sort of like retrain the body that this is the go-to. This is the posture that we want to maintain and sustain. So. That's one of those. It's an easy thing to do. You just get up against a wall and you just press your whole body into it with, those specific techniques in mind.
If this trainer, again, is another trainer who doesn't own Prime, I'm going to be super mad at you because you definitely, Prime and Prime Pro is probably what you should live in. If you're training advanced age clients, probably 80% of your programming should come from Prime and Prime Pro. Zone 1 test that we have in Prime is a perfect way for you to either photograph or video the client on day 1 to show them how poorly they are, their inability.
Progression and relief, instant relief.
Listen, people need to understand this, that you can greatly solve upper cross syndrome in a relatively short period of time. In a 6-month period of time, I've had clients, you wouldn't even believe the difference that it made in the
radical.
how they were standing up. A radical difference. Because this is all controlled by the central nervous system. This is all muscles, some being tightened, others being loosened. Now, someone might be wondering, how does this happen? If you hold your body in a position for prolonged periods of time, your body builds strength in that position, and it loses strength outside of that position. And what ends up happening is that position that you're always in becomes the new default position. This is where your body feels safest, even if it's less than ideal. Upper cross syndrome is from sitting down long periods of time, looking down at your phone for long periods of time, work on a computer for long periods of time. Your body literally morphs and shapes into those positions, and then moving outside of that, it doesn't feel safe. One other thing I used to like to do with these people, it's kind of hard to explain on the podcast, but I'll demonstrate it as well. I would have them place their hands behind their head and place their elbows on a barbell and lean forward and press their thoracic spine through and open up their chest. This would be a great pre-row movement that I would have them do. They would press the thoracic spine through, open things up, then we would do rows. And I'm telling you, miraculous differences in upper cross syndrome with proper exercise. This month's sale MAPS Bands and MAPS 40 Plus, both programs, half off. If you're interested, just click on the link at the top of the description below. All right, here comes the show.
Next question is from Becca Miller. My arms carry a lot of fat.
So does Justin's.
I lost. It says I lost
Mass, dude. It's different.
He's got fat steps.
Fat arms. It's my new
Okay,
thing.
let me finish this
Massive
question.
biceps.
Sorry, go.
Yeah.
I've lost 15 pounds and 23 inches overall, 6 in my waist, but haven't lost any inches in my arms. Is there anything I can do to shrink my arms?
Keep getting leaner.
Yeah.
Your body, our fat storage patterns
Is unique to you.
and somewhat are influenced somewhat by lifestyle and hormones. So people who say, "Oh, hormones that affect that," bullshit. You take a man and you crush his testosterone, put him on estrogen, watch what happens to his fat storage, right?
Yeah.
So there is some influence there, but the point is your body you don't spot reduce. Your body burns body fat from
overall.
areas that it's going to want to. Typically, the first place you put it on is the last place you lose it. And so we have these predispositions for the most part. And women tend to store more on their arms than men. Men tend to store more in their bellies than women. Women tend to store more in their hips and thighs. And men don't really store any in their upper chest. Women obviously have breasts. So this is all, and you can't really pick from where your body burns body fat. So if you have an area that's quote unquote stubborn, typically you just have to get lean enough to where your body taps in that. And also be healthy, because hormone imbalances stuff can cause interesting fat storage patterns.
And okay, so 100% agree. And put a lot of emphasis on building muscle. This is okay. So the person who's trying to lose inches on my waist, lose inches on my arms, and they're in the lose mindset. Low calorie, burn. They're going that way, and they're not happy with, let's say, body fat on their arms like that. A lot of times they don't even realize they're making it more difficult for themselves too by not being in like a reverse diet and actually trying to build muscle for a while. I've seen clients like this too make a mistake of, I don't want to train my arms because they're already fat. They're already big. I don't want them to be any bigger. And so they avoid arm training altogether because they're afraid of getting bigger arms, and they're living in a calorie deficit just trying to burn. Someone like this, and this may be really hard to wrap your brain around, would be very beneficial to go into a reverse diet and actually train your arms to build.
Sure.
And understand that like the same size arms, muscular versus fat, looks totally different.
Yeah.
And so and muscle sits on your body different than body fat does. And so don't shy away from training arms. You're training your arms hard and trying to build muscle in your arms. And also don't shy away from reverse dieting and actually trying to build muscle. Because if all you're doing is lifting weights and you're always in a calorie deficit, well, then a lot of times what happens, you shrink down, you lose some weight in the waist, but you're also not building any muscle. You're just losing pounds, and they're coming off. And so you have a soft look to your body. And so when I get a complaint like this from a client, a lot of times I'd have to convince them that I'd say, hey, that's because we're not on a muscle building program right now. You're on a burn program, and you just want to lose and get smaller. But what we'd really benefit from is bumping our calories for a little while and actually going and building muscle. And even though that might scare you to see the scale go up 5 pounds, it's going to shape your body differently, and you're going to be happier with the way that looks.
Next question is from Jamelia144. What is your favorite exercise that gets weird looks in the gym and is super effective and or underrated?
I have one. I'm gonna steal yours.
What?
Because I think it's something that I didn't ever do until we all met, and it definitely gets weird looks, and I definitely think it's super underrated, and that is sissy squats.
Yeah.
Such a good movement, and for a lot of different reasons. Not just because it targets the quads incredibly, and I think it's more effective than even a leg extension because of range of motion reasons, but also in order to perform it with really good form, it requires good mobility, good hip, good ankle mobility, also good core strength, the ability to activate your glutes and keep them engaged as you hinge down. And so the technique of being able to perform it requires a lot of good communication to your muscles that I think are very favorable and beneficial. Plus, they are better than leg extensions, and if you're trying to train quads. So I think it's a very underrated, unique exercise you rarely see anybody doing. You look silly when you do it, and people look at you weird, but is a great banger.
You know, it's interesting. I used to have a lot of exercises like this, but now that I work out in a commercial gym, it's a UFC gym, so it skews more towards people who are serious, right? I see almost every exercise that used to get weird looks. I see people doing Zottman curls. I see people doing Zercher squats. I mean, when I was working out in the 90s, in the late 90s, early 2000s, deadlifts got me weird looks. I used to deadlift, and I would pull, back in those days, I was pulling 400, sometimes 450 at the most. And I'd lift this big weight and I'd hit the ground. And I was a gym manager.
Angry.
And I would get members that would come up to me and be like, "You're going to hurt your back.
Yeah.
You shouldn't be lifting that way." I actually had somebody write corporate.
I got that from a Good Morning, which was the one that I was going to say, because I do see those like sometimes, but very rare. Very rare.
That's a good one.
Good Morning's as well.
That's a great one. That's another one that you rarely see in the gym, and it's a.
But yeah, deadlifts used to piss everybody off. Yeah, because it was just so rare that people would do that. It was just like, it wasn't set up. None of the gyms were set up for that.
So what do you got? What do you got? What is yours?
I mean, I don't really do anything that's super weird today.
You suck. You have no underrated exercises. I stole yours. That's why.
Just say matrix lunge to give it to
no, I don't do this.
Yeah, hey, curtsy squats. When you do curtsy squats,
never have I done a curtsy squat. I can't. I don't think I have the mobility. I do hip thrusts all the time. I don't get funny looks, or maybe I do.
I'd say hip thrust.
Yeah, I don't know. It's tough. Like I said, I see almost every exercise. You know what? If I did, I don't do this exercise, but if I did, I guarantee people will be like, "What? A Jefferson curl?" I think that's still the exercise. That if you did that today,
you get a lot of looks.
Most people will be like, "No,
you're gonna break yourself in half." Yeah.
I mean, if I didn't steal sissy squat, I was gonna say my step up to a balance to a toe touch, which looks like
used to see that all the
looks like
time.
a ballerina move. You know what I'm saying? It looks like a silly kind of. Well, if you saw a big dude like me doing that, you'd probably be like, "This is kind of. It looks kind of weird. It looks kind of weird."
Is he an ice skater?
Seeing like a big buff
No,
guy.
I think you were a trainer
doing an exercise.
Like, he's probably a trainer.
Yeah, you might. Well, you would, because you would know, because you get it, right? But I think that one's a little unique to do that. And I think that's a great exercise. It's the exercise you've heard me say on the podcast before, that if there's a movement, I used to tell all my older clients, like, hey, I want you to always be able to do this. If there's one thing that you always practice, don't lose this skill, because the ability to step up like that, to stabilize like that, to hinge at the hips like that, and balancing through the whole movement is such a good skill to maintain for your whole life.
I used to do like crawling patterns in like Gold's Gym. Just as a fuck you.
Back in like 15 years ago?
Yeah, come on, bro.
All like bear crawls and stuff like that.
And shit. It's just crawling across the floor of a bodybuilding gym.
Yeah. Dude, there's so many looks, dude.
Of course, I'd still give you looks.
Oh, yeah. I waited for somebody to say something, too.
Go outside, guy.
I wouldn't say anything. I would just look when you weren't looking. What a weirdo.
He did.
And he looks at me, I look away, huh? I'm not looking at
in your 5-finger shoes.
Yeah. Or barefoot.
Making noise.
That's all right. They were wearing like fingerless gloves, so they didn't have much to say.
There's not a lot of exercises, I think, these days. That you're
not that's like super underrated, right? Because there's a lot of ridiculous stuff. In fact, to your point,
actually, I get funny looks
as a
when
trainer.
I use the adductor. Sometimes people look at me like, I'm correctional
there's
exercise.
Nothing underrated about that. That's overrated for sure.
Go back, girls.
As a trainer, I used to do this a lot. I definitely don't do this anymore. I would do silly, ridiculous exercises to get the attention of people, to get them to ask me questions so that I can present to why it's so amazing.
Give us an example. What would be a crazy
a kneeling on a stability ball, tricep push down on the cable machine.
Yeah, dude.
Yeah, exactly, right? Everybody laughing.
What another douchebag.
Just stupid.
No,
right?
I'm laughing because I probably did that because I was like, you're understudy.
Just like, that's a brilliant movement. Yeah.
Wow, this works.
I've lost it on that before, by the way, too.
Oh, just bailed?
No. Talk about embarrassing when that happened. So yeah, I've done some. I remember doing push-ups where I've got all 4 limbs suspended. Yeah, all 2 medicine balls, 2 stability balls, push-ups. Like, just stupid. Totally they're challenging, they're difficult, it gets a lot of attention, but I would not put that in the category of underrated because it's so valuable. Like that's
I just started deadlifting again, right? And at UFC they have these big orange bumper plates for 45s, and you can't fit more than 4 on each side.
Yeah.
So I had to put on extra skinnier plates or whatever.
Yeah.
Nobody looked. I was looking around. Anybody watching?
Yeah.
Look, the bar can't fit any more weight.
Yeah.
What? Nobody cares?
Nobody cares.
Right. Whatever, dudes. I'm doing this.
We'll just do it then, I guess.
I think there's a lot of moves that
there used to be so many. In fact, years ago, Doug and I created a YouTube channel, which still exists, I think.
Really?
Yeah, it still exists, still there. And it was great. Now people go look at it.
I know.
That's a young Sal, everybody.
What do you guys have it under?
It's forgotten muscle building exercises.
No, forgotten muscle building secrets or
Secrets?
exercises?
I don't know.
Forgotten.
That might have been the
Muscle
building exercises.
Building.
And it was all the exercises that nobody did anymore, which we all now have programmed and talk about.
Yeah, we've used them in
And now
all
people,
our programs.
yeah.
Oh my God! Look at young Sal right here.
Look at that, bro. That's
10 years ago.
Yeah,
No, it's not. It's more
because you
10.
could put like
They're
bench
10,
press
bro.
and,
Are they 10?
Yeah, it was 10. It was right
Why does it
before
look like 30 years ago?
Right before we all got
It's
together.
a picture.
like windmills, and I mean, of course, any unconventional tools. I used to get all kinds of looks for all that stuff.
That's
so.
still, you still probably will. A little
still
bit.
will,
What are the exercises, Doug, in there that we did?
Boy, I think it's Zercher squats are in there. Let me see. Yeah,
I'll tell
Zercher
you,
squats,
I'm
good
on it.
mornings, Zotman curls, behind the back barbell shrug, sissy squats, push press.
I didn't know you did Zercher
since
squats.
I wrote all these-
I thought
Since I wrote all these down 10 years ago, I beat you guys basically.
you did.
I was doing
Name 'em
that
all.
though.
Yeah, Justin and I don't have
You
proof.
just researched that. I was doing that.
yeah.
That's the difference.
Yeah. Hey, you were watching Justin do it. And steal
Yeah,
his
yeah. You
Listen.
came over to my gym and you're like,
I tell you
use
what
this in a
I
video.
tell you what I didn't do: crawl across the floor.
You didn't kneel on a stability ball and you push it.
Never kneel on a stability.
So
ball.
your most
You know why?
your
I
most
would've fallen
viral
right out the gate.
your most viral one you did was build muscle with behind the back barbell shrugs.
How many views?
4,000.
That's not bad.
That's not bad.
That's
Behind
bad.
the back.
I have a
muscle
feeling
shrugs
that
are
I have a
legit.
feeling that
It's about
these
to crush.
No, I have a feeling that they've gotten 3,900 of those views were searching Mind Pump Sal. I think, and that's how it got. Yeah, because I think if you search Sal DeStefano, you'll find this.
Well, there you go. That's pre-divorce,
Young buck
pre-extra
Sal.
kids.
Yeah,
Pre-business.
pre gray hair.
Yeah.
Pre everything.
Oh, it's a
pre
good time.
peptides, pre everything. This is like
stop.
Handsome hair Sal.
you look like you ate this Sal right here,
I
dude.
did.
Yes, I'm pretty sure you did.
Yeah, it killed me. There's two of us. Now there's only one.
This is like Bizarro Sal right here.
Stop. I don't look like Bizarro. My face is all.